Most writers ask themselves, at least at some point, am I doing this right? Am I doing writing right? And then, because I often ask myself this question, then I remind myself that the greats, at least in regards to their masterpieces, openly admitted that they had no idea how they did it until it was done. So, what if writing isn't a procedure that you have to get right, but instead it's a process that you have to let happen through you? Hi, I'm Stefan Baciu, writer of Nether Street Blues over on Substack, and today I'm going to talk to you a bit about how to view the writing process in a way that's more fun, more productive, and more beautiful. And my first tip is to get feedback as soon as you can. At the end of the day, writing, literature, it's about communicating. It's about communication, and you need at least two parties for that to be actual communication and not just a signal sent into the void. And it's not easy. I procrastinated on getting real feedback for years. And there were years when I was writing by myself, sending it to friends who weren't writers, and they liked my stuff, but they didn't help me grow. They gave me fuel to keep going, but they didn't tell me what I was doing right and what I needed to work on or just discard entirely. Because that's the thing when you rely on writing manuals and writing courses, you end up learning a lot of techniques, but most of those techniques aren't going to benefit your writing style. Many of the greats, they only do a few things well, but they do them over and over in a way that fits their voice. And that's why they became greats. It's not about mastering a lot of techniques, it's about mastering a few of them very deeply. That's what makes you memorable. And you cannot find what makes you memorable by yourself. You need another person. So go out there, make some writing friends, holler to me over on Substack. The world is yours. And from this point follows my second, and that's never be afraid to incorporate said feedback. Even more so, stop viewing any work as something that will ever be complete. Borges, famous Spanish writer whose name I forgot, one of his friends, who said that we only publish a work once we want to get rid of that idea, once we're done exploring with that idea. Not because the work is done, but because we are done with it. And coming back to feedback, never be afraid to incorporate it in your work. Incorporate it as soon as you can, but also as late as you can. And here I'm gonna tell you a story from Borges' life. Borges edited and re-released his first volume of poetry, The Fervor of Buenos Aires, late in his life, into his second part of his life, after his father passed away. And the reason why he did it is because he only got his father's feedback on that first volume of poetry after his death. His father never wanted to give Borges feedback on the work while he was alive. And Borges was lucky enough to find his father's annotated volume of The Fervor of Buenos Aires. And there were a lot of notes in there, a lot of critical notes. And Borges was humble enough to implement them. And he did that with a lot of his works. Borges edited and changed a lot of his works throughout his life. And I think that's why he's one of the greats. So never be afraid to incorporate feedback. The third point that I want to make is write as you can, come as you are, as they say. We would all like to be somebody like Tolstoy, who was well off and had all the time in the world to write. And also his wife was the editor of his works. Those are ideal situations. And even so, Tolstoy struggled. But on the other hand, we also had Raymond Carver, who lived a very working class life. And he mastered the short story and poetry because he admitted he didn't have time to write a novel, to work on a novel in a way that was productive, because he had at the most an hour to write. And his kids, he says, are his biggest influence because they limited his time, and he would either have to write a short story or a poem. And he wrote many, many poems, many short stories. And a lot of critics said he revolutionized the short story. He brought new life into it, at least in the later half of the 20th century in American letters. And my my personal take, my personal lesson from that is that you don't need perfect conditions to be great. You don't even need perfect discipline. You just have to go after it again and again as you can. But I'm gonna close here by saying that the most important thing is to have fun. As if you're not having fun, if you're seeing it as a chore, you won't be able to put a lot of energy. You will get burned out, and you might even give up writing entirely for a period of time. And if you're trying to get a procedure right, that's a sure way to not have fun. But if you get together with other people, if you build a community, a system around you, and make it an adventure, then you will have fun. You know, always be free to let yourself experiment. You know, don't be afraid to let works simmer even for years. That's what I've done with one of the works that I'm publishing this year in serialized form over Substack. I had this idea way back in 2018, and it went through many different variations. I even had an attempt of writing it last year, and I got some feedback on it, and I went back to the drawing board. But I had fun with it, and I met a lot of interesting people while writing that story along the way. I'll name it in the description of this video. And right now I'm having a lot of fun with it. So that's my key takeaway. Get feedback, get in touch with other writers or other people who get your work. Work as you can, not as you'd like to as you like to be able to, and make it fun, make it an adventure. That's all I have to say on the writing process for today. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you'd like anything to add, if you want to push back any of these ideas. And be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. Until next time, much love, fun.